Yeah, I mean that's a good point, right? It is one of those things that does feel very different. And I hear a lot of people saying it's worse. And again, I don't know enough like stats or definitions to know what's better or worse, but it feels that way. And I think another big part is, you know, it's the connectedness to the rest of the world we have now versus 2008 as well. I mean, obviously in 2008 we were all online and we were talking about the recession on Twitter and, you know,
Sure.
as but it wasn't being inundated on LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram or wherever else with just constant stories and stories and stories of it. And I think that's a big part. I think that's most news now, right? It's just sort of like you hear about so much more and it's so much quicker. So I think that's a big factor. I think we're also seeing way more industries that we used to view as kind of recession proof or untouchable
Yeah.
being hit. And that probably is more related to AI, right? Because in 2008, it was just like, oh, we'll shift into tech. If you're graduating tech or learning tech, like you're going to be fine. This is all old banking and old business stuff that like we don't care about crashing.
Yeah.
This feels like a oh shoot, no matter what industry I'm in outside of like healthcare or blue collar trades, I'm probably in trouble. Yeah, it's I mean, there's people that are definitely moving too fast, and there's people that are definitely moving too slow. And like most extremes in the world, somewhere in the middle is where we want to be with this stuff. And yeah, and it's funny because I did a talk a while back, a few months ago, for a city. I won't even name the city, but like a city's like HR chapter, and the talk was on sort of like how you should be allowing candidates to use AI and ways to do it and implement into your systems and like ways to be moving forward so you don't get too far behind with this stuff. And at the end, someone asked just like, oh, so do I need to set up a chat GPT account to do some of this? And I was just sort of like, oh, okay. Like I have spent my life in tech. So like to me, this is the bar everyone is at. So it's interesting to see like all these kind of HR leaders for companies that just like AI hasn't mattered yet
Hmm.
who are just sort of like still so far behind. So I think there's just this bar right now where like no one really knows where you're supposed to be level wise, that like you shouldn't be too far to the left of it, but you shouldn't be too far to the right of it either right now. So that's where this book comes from. It's real talk from someone who publicly job searched and job searched within the last few years and got hired several times. From somebody who did the hiring during this time. I tell stories about sitting in rooms with hiring managers and the things they said about candidates and for right or wrong, like what they said. I show, you know, one of my favorite parts of the book is I show my kind of crash out at one point on my own job search where I really wanted this job. And I just sent like 15 emails to like the hiring managers, like every day, like emailing them and just like, and I was like, look, reader, like you just read this. Would you hire me? Like this is what you're, you know, like you smelled the desperation in these emails and you got turned off. Like that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But I get it because I did it. And you know, like so many of these books and so much advice has come from people who haven't sent a resume since 2009. You know, and I just think that like that's what this book is, right? Is this is the 2025 modern job searching from somebody who is not going to make up kind of lies or clickbait or, you know, it bleeds, it leads. Like that's not how I talk about stuff. Like just like real talk. Let's let's do it. And that's what this book is. And the reviews so far, people have been loving it. It's just it comes from a real point of view they need to hear from.
Do you think it surprises people to learn that some recruiters have a tough time finding a job?
Um, I think it used to. I think now the market is so bad that like I think now it's sort of this sign of like, well, if recruiters can't even do it, like who can? But um yeah, because the biggest issue in the job market right now is just simply number of people to openings. Like it's just like
Yeah.
that's it. Like you can blame whatever you want, like whatever systems, whatever this, that. No matter what, if a job gets opened, it gets so many applicants that many qualified applicants can't get hired. So like ultimately that's problem one. And I think we've come to accept that a little bit. But I showed one of the first videos I showed after my job search was like I kept data from my own search. And I was like, look, I have a great resume. I think I follow every like rule a resume should follow. And here's my data. And it was like I got interviews at 10% of the companies I applied to. I got like rejected from this many. I got like ghosted from this many. And I was like, look, if I'm only getting interviews at 10% of companies I apply to, and I'm specializing my resume and I'm only applying to jobs I'm a qualified fit for and all these things, like you need to know that data and understand maybe your 3% might feel terrible, but like isn't, that bad, as
Mm.
bad of a number that is. So I just think that like, I think now people are happy to see recruiters struggle to find a job out there. But in general, I think they're just like, they realize like recruiters are just people too. Like,
Yeah.
trying to get hired in this market. I think I think maybe the most surprising thing like for them is really when I make them stop and just sort of realize like everyone involved in this process is a person trying to get by, right? Like the recruiter
Mm.
that you hate is also like a person just trying to like hire in this like mess. And the manager who you think is like a terrible manager or like made the wrong hiring decision is also just a person trying to like build a team that's going to help them keep their job, who's also worried about their job because they're also
Yeah.
just like a manager who ultimately reports all the way up to some billionaire somewhere too. Right. It's just kind of like a lot of my focus is on like that's what's going on, right? Just like here's I made a video a long time ago that showed like, look, I opened up this job. Here's the applications I got over the weekend. Now you can tell me turn off the job over the weekend. Cool, I left over the weekend, but here's the 600 resumes that came in. And tomorrow morning, it's going to be me coming in there as the only recruiter going through all of this. And
Hmm.
599 people are not going to like the decision at the end of this. Um, so I think it's shining that light sometimes is just what they really need, because people envision it as just this like big machine out there spitting people out and not caring and any of these things. And I get that when you're an unemployed job seeker, you don't care, you don't want to give empathy to like a recruiter or whatever. Like I get it. Them being unemployed and over or them being employed and overworked is better than your situation. Like totally understand.
Right.
But like I do like try and get people to like remember like we're all just people. when you have six people who all check every must-have requirement, like they're all equally qualified, and then like someone gets hired. So like I always hear people like, "Oh, they hired someone less qualified." It's like, well, you're just sort of like adding that narrative. You don't actually know that. You weren't in on the
Right.
interviews, right? So yeah, as a parter, right? Most qualified to me means like the company's thought at that moment of who the best person is for their specific need in that specific time and situation, and that's going to be different company to company. And that's what's hard is there's no universal answer to that stuff. What one company rejects you for, one's going to hire you for, right? I just think it's like accepting things like that, that really matter, and that's a lot of what the book focuses on, right? The idea that like none of this is a magic trick or a blueprint. These are all just like things to keep in mind, and it is what it is. Like I say that a lot. Like go fight the world, help it change, help it get better. That's great, but people have to pay rent this month, and this is the system. So I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about it, and how it is. And
It's been my experience that a lot of job seekers are frustrated with their job search because it takes so long, but also because they're only applying for a job and waiting for a call. They're not putting in any of the extra work that goes into finding a job. Did you find that to be the case as well among your followers when people make comments on your videos?
yeah, people are definitely frustrated at how long it takes, especially people who have had to do this before. Right, it's harder than it's ever been before, and I agree. Um, and I think what frustrates them even more is they can do all of those things and still not get hired, right? And they
Yeah.
say, I customized a resume. I targeted the right job. I wrote a good cover letter. I emailed the hiring manager. I prepped for the interviews. I went to the interviews, and then they wasted my time and didn't hire me. It's like, well, they didn't waste your time. They were trying to find someone. They hired someone, and unfortunately, it wasn't you. And that's hard because you can do all those things and not get hired. So it makes you not want to do them. And that, that's one of those things I've gone through, and that sucks. And I went through and fell in love with the idea of plenty of jobs on my own job search that like I didn't get, and that's kind of how these things go. But for the people who don't want to do any of it, and they'll say like, I don't want to have to do any of that. I shouldn't have to do any of that. I always just tell them like, you don't have to. It's not a rule. It's not a law. But like people are out there doing it. So in a competitive environment, if you're not going to put the effort to compete with people, you can't also be surprised when people who are putting that effort in are seeing more success. But doing it doesn't mean automatic success. And that's what frustrates people because they hear all the career coaches, they hear everyone out there saying, do this, do that, and then they don't get hired. So they think it must be bad advice.